Welcome, MLB First Pitch for Friday, June the 21st. As we head into the weekend, all these big series starting up Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We're going to break down many of them for you for free right here on the TV show. And be sure to chime in if you're watching us live here at 2 o'clock Eastern on Friday, because we do monitor the chat and we answer any specific game or pitcher questions or prop players, anything you want to talk about. Live chat here on YouTube TV on WagerTalk, also YouTube Shorts. And, of course, if you're day drinking, getting the weekend started early, do so on Instagram Live, please. Let's keep the day drinking to Instagram here on Friday. Speaking of day drinking, I'm joined by Bryan, Leonard. No, Bryan's as professional as they get, and I am Steve Merril, and we've both been doing this for quite a while, 30 to 40 years each, and we know our baseball. Look what he is wearing right now. My goodness, definitely a Cleveland Guardian fan. They have won him over, to say the least, and they are in the playoff hunt. And, Bryan, we'll get to them maybe here a little bit later in your best bet segment. They play Toronto tonight, but we're going to start off for your big game breakdown. Probably the biggest matchup this weekend. Now, maybe it's lost a little bit of its luster because the Braves haven't been dominating like people thought they would, but they still are a very dangerous team. The Yankees, meanwhile, have been dominating. Huge interleague matchup. What are you doing with this spotlight game, Atlanta and the New York Yankees here on Friday night?
Yeah, the Yankees got the big showdown they wanted last few days with Baltimore, and a lot of offense in those games. Anytime you have very good offensive teams playing, it's tough to streak some pitchers. You might get one or two days where a starting pitcher will be very good, but it's something that we could take advantage of in the next series, which is what we're looking at here, because Baltimore hit the Yankees so hard, and obviously with Heel getting bombed yesterday, we have some concerns about the Yankees bullpen. Other than the ninth and eighth inning guys, everybody else pitched yesterday. In fact, a lot of them pitched 2 of the last 3 days for the Yankees in the bullpen. That's a concern here. And so on the mound is Carlos Rondon, who has had a really good season. The last couple of years, his velocity has gone down a little bit, but it's worked out better for him. But if you take a look at his StatCast numbers, he's still not good in exit velocity at 90.7, hard hit rate 43.5. Expected slugging 437. So his numbers, his regular numbers that we see, the ERA, the walks, and that kind of stuff, has been good, but he's been getting hit pretty hard. And that's how we could take advantage of these guys, especially the guys that have done very well over the years. And when Rodon is healthy, he's been a guy who's really lit up the scoreboard, especially from a strike throwing standpoint. So he's a well-known pitcher. And we also get Chris Sale going today, who's been terrific. Got no problem with Sale. But keep in mind, he's going back to Yankee Stadium. He spent a lot of time in Boston going against these Yankees. The Yankees know him very well. They've got a veteran group. The management is very similar to the way it was before when Sale was there. So we got a couple of pitchers here that I think are a little bit overrated. Take a look at the line in this game. It opened up to 7.5, and now it's gone 7.5, 8 under. So with 2 star pitchers going, we're seeing a slight edge to the over, and that's the way I'm looking at this one. You mentioned Atlanta's been off to a slower start lately, but I've watched a lot of the Atlanta games in the last week. They're really starting to come around. Riley hit like 3 home runs in 2 days. The catcher came up and hit 2 home runs the other day. So they're starting to put it together. And the Yankees have had their problems, obviously, with Judge being out of the lineup and all after getting hit by that pitch. But they're still a very good hitting team. I don't like the idea of bringing up some of their guys higher in the lineup against lefties. I guess it's what you have to do. But as a whole, the Yankees are hitting pretty well. And they showed that against a very good Baltimore pitching staff. So I think with the line of 7.5, 8 here, I like the over. And the weather's going to be pretty good across the country. In fact, yesterday was a hot day, and they averaged 10.7 runs per game yesterday. I see more of that coming today. So I'm playing that game over. I think the offenses are improved, and especially Atlanta starting to hit the ball better. As much as these pitchers have done well in the past, I like the over, and a lot of it has to do about the bullpens. And these pitchers got to go more than what the manager is wanting them to do because they're bullpens. That's something we don't like if you're playing the under. So let's play that game over.
Yeah, Brian, we got a lot of our loyal viewers here in the chats chiming in on the Braves and Yankees. Titan CT said he played the Braves. He is not a fan of Rodon. And City by the Bay, first one in the live chat today, and his first comment of the week here on Friday is, or at least on today, is Bryan Leonard is my hero. So City by the Bay, Bryan Leonard, you are his hero. And I will segue to one of the games he's asking about because he said right after you were his hero, White Sox dog alert. Now, I assumed he meant they're a live dog, but then again, there's two ways to read that. And the more I'm looking at it, it could just be that they're a dog. And I don't think any of us would disagree with that. But I've talked about the White Sox, Brian, a few times this week. Obviously, Crochet was on the mound the other night. Once again, live chat, post-show replay here. Comment below. Do you think they should trade Crochet, one of the best young pitchers in baseball? He was a converted reliever until recently, and he's already gone the most innings ever, and we're not even halfway. The more I've been thinking about this, Brian, I actually think you sell high now, and you actually do trade him away, but that's on a different discussion here. Let's talk about the White Sox and Johnny Detroit's Tigers. Thoughts on this game? The White Sox have been a streaky team. They were 3-22 to start. Then they were the most profitable team in baseball for 2 weeks, and then they lost 14 straight right after that. We've seen a little bit of life from them this week. What are your thoughts on the White Sox and Tigers?
Yeah, if I'm playing, I'm taking the number here with Eric Fedde on the mound. He's been the second best starter. You mentioned Crochet. Crochet's been just fantastic. The problem is he's about to reach an pitching innings limit. And the White Sox have him signed pretty well. So I think they are going to wait and not get rid of him because who's going to give up a lot for him, especially this year if you're in the playoff race, if you don't know how many more innings he's going to pitch. Eric Fedde's been very consistent all season long, much better pitcher than he was the last time he was in Major League Baseball. Jack Flaherty started the year terrifically. The change in being over from St. Louis over to Detroit has really worked out well for him. In fact, if you go back, and you're a Cardinals fan, you know all about this. Seems like every time they trade somebody, they do much better, and he has done very well in Detroit. Not quite as good lately. I think a lot of these guys, we see it with a lot of these players, they're starting to tire, especially now when it's starting to get a little bit warm. They seem to tire a little bit. But I would prefer the Chicago side here. Detroit's offense really has done nothing. I actually like the White Sox a little bit better offensively right now. And if you can get a comparative, and I'm not saying that Fedde's as good as Flaherty, but if you can get a comparative starting pitcher matchup here, maybe we play the first half. But the White Sox would be the way to go here just because I think from an offensive standpoint, Detroit has fallen so far back that it's hard to trust Detroit in this price range.
Yeah, a lot of times, Brian, it's not about playing the underdog. It's about maybe not playing a favorite, right? And like you said, it's hard to trust Detroit right here. And could I get anybody interested in the under in this game? If you take out the Tigers' 13-run performance against Houston last Saturday, I believe, this team has gone 0-5 on their other 5 games during that span over the past week, and they have scored 1 run or less in their other 5 games. So this is a team that's 1-5 straight up their last 6, 1 run or less scored in every game but one. I mean, Adam Trigger alert, White Sox run line might be a sure thing, right? If your team can't score more than 1, take the +1.5. So, yeah, I would be White Sox or pass for me. I'm not looking to back this ugly false favorite. But once again, the under could be in play as well. The odds makers, the betting public, well aware of that, though, because they had this price pretty darn low. Opened 8 under. Now it's 7.5 across the board. One of the lowest prices we'll see this week. We also have a 7.5 in that Milwaukee-San Diego game. In fact, why don't we talk about that one, Brian? Because the Padres are a very interesting team for me that offensively on the road this year, they've averaged almost 5 runs a game, hit almost 280 as a team. We all know Petco is not hitter-friendly, but we're starting to get lower lines because of that, I think. And last night was a good example. There were only 2 night games last night. I did a video on one of them on the Rick Wood game, the Giants-Cardinals. It was a high-profile game. And then the free play I posted on my page last night for everybody. And by the way, I do put a free play up every day, Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com. I used that over 8.5 last night, and there were 13 runs in that game. It got up and over fairly easy. Milwaukee put up 9 hits, Padres 10 hits, 13 runs combined. What is your take on the Padres going forward? They're actually tied right now for one of the wild card spots, and they still have underachieved on the season. Milwaukee, meanwhile, I don't want to say they're running away with that bad NL Central, but they have a pretty good cushion right now. Thoughts on Brewers and Padres, a late night game at 9:40 Eastern?
Yeah, the NL Central, I think everybody's still alive. Maybe not Pittsburgh, but we'll see. Pittsburgh's starting pitching staff, other than 1 and 2, has been pretty good as of late, and they're about to
Half
get
a
one of
game
their
out right
veterans
now.
back. Yeah, yeah. So they're all still in there. You mentioned San Diego being more of a lower scoring environment. I read an article the other day, and it's picking up a little bit. If you follow the home run environments and the scoring environments for each of these stadiums, they vary pretty much every year. I know you're going to have certain years where Baltimore is going to bring the fences in or move them back out again. Cleveland moved some things in their outfield and the stands, and they've got a little bit of a wind situation there. So if you hit it in a certain area, and you'll have some success in that regard. So everything's a little bit different each and every year, and they do go up and down. But I think San Diego's more of a hitter area stadium now than it's been the last few years. But Dylan Cease has been very good. I didn't expect a whole lot out of him because it took him so long to sign. A lot of people had concerns about him. He's having a really good season, but Colin Ray's one of those guys that eats up innings, and the Milwaukee bullpen is very good. And in fact, Williams should be back in just a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks here. So it'll be even better. And the back of the bullpen's been very good for Milwaukee in that regard. 7.5, a little bit low here. I think I like the over in this one. Not going to touch the side, but yeah, this is another game where I think there's a little bit of value here on the over.
Yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to mention. I mean, I talk about how, San Diego's offensive numbers are much better on the road. Obviously, Petco is considered a non-hitter friendly park. But look at the over-under records right now. After going over last night, San Diego is 21-18 over at home. They're 18-21 to the under on the road. 3 games over at home, 3 games under on the road, even though they're batting about 40 points higher. So the only way you can explain that is, well, maybe they pitch better at home, and they probably do, but also that the totals are much lower. And this is a good example of that. We had an 8.5 last night. They put up 13 runs, and now we have a 7.5, the lowest total on the board, along with that Tiger game in which Detroit scored 1 run or less 5 of their last 6. So I do think that's why we might start seeing some more overs. And I like where you were going with the ballpark data as well, Brian. Something to keep an eye on, big picture here over the next several months. All right, right above that game on the rotation is the highest scoring game on the board tonight, and the one altitude game, of course. My Washington Nationals, who just like Marco D'Angelo's Pittsburgh Pirates, are like a half a game out of the wild card. And by the way, that's not saying much. They're both below 500. And in fact, only 2 teams in the National League right now are not within a couple games of the playoffs. One of those is actually these Colorado Rockies. The other one is the Miami Marlins, who made the playoffs last year. They're both way out. Everybody else is in contention right now. Nationals, Rockies. I've been asking everybody this all week. Are the Nationals for real? Everyone has been saying no. But they're a favorite on the road here at Colorado tonight, Brian. Any thoughts on this game?
They've been saying no all year. I remember I did a breakdown at WagerTalk today, and I had Washington going over. And Teddy just put me on the spot, which he always does. He said, "You're the first person I've talked to that likes Washington." I said, "Well, I'm probably the first person you talk to that pays attention to their minor leagues." They have done very well this season, and they've actually been about what I thought they'd be, about a 500 ball club or so. So I've liked Washington. Now, he didn't look that great early on, but his last start, he really came out of nowhere, struck out 13 and was dominant. The problem is, if you take a look at his swinging strike rate and some of the other things I look at, he was pretty lucky in that contest. So I think he'll get hit a little bit here. Colorado, obviously, we know this is a hitter's ballpark. Looking at a total of 11.5 in this one. I think it'll be a high-scoring game. Hudson's been pretty good in certain spots, but I think it'll be a higher-scoring game. And I think Colorado is the team to play in this one. Washington's not a team that I'm looking to back in the road favorite role. Colorado's been very good as a home dog, as we have seen every single year. Terrible road team, good home dog. Give me Colorado in this one, as I think they put some runs up against Washington.
And that's Colorado as a home dog. Like you said, even more rare to see a losing team like the Nationals to be a road favorite in this one, which means maybe the betting markets are getting a little bullish on them after their strong run here the last couple of weeks. Once again, Deobatai in the live chat is saying, where Dan at? And then the very next comment, free Dan. Dan is free. In fact, Dan is moving around freely. He produced Wager Talk today earlier, and he will be back Monday hosting this show. but he is up and about and freely moving this weekend. A very busy man is Dan, so I stepped in to give him some extra time off. And by the way, speaking of time, go back and watch the Wager Talk Today episode. Andy Lang and myself, Steve Merril, we co-hosted for Teddy and the Prez. So it was not only a Prez free zone, but for those of you that get intimidated by Teddy's follow-ups, it was a Teddy free zone. And Andy did not even ask follow-ups. We just kept going back and forth on all the games. Arthur DeCesar was on as well. Yet another reason to click subscribe and hit the bell for instant alerts when the shows and videos go live. But Andy had a great segment on time management. We had a discussion on that and how to make not only your life better, but your handicapping better as well. So actually worth watching. Some pretty good information Friday. And Bryan, let me ask you that. You've been doing this longer than me. I've been doing it 30 years. You've been doing it almost 40 years, probably more than 40. I didn't want to age you too much here on live TV, but process is so important. And the story I actually gave on the show today, Bryan, was college basketball. When I started in the 90s, every Friday night I would dread college Saturday because there'd be like 100-plus games, and I would digitally go through every one of them. And I'd scratch most of them off in 5 minutes, but it was a process. You're talking about hours, and I hated it. Now I've gotten to where I make a short list. I maybe have a 10-game short list before I even look at the card, and I scratch some of those off, and boom, I've got 3 or 4 strong best bets. My record's been as good, if not better, probably. And I've gotten smarter. I always felt like you had to work harder, and sometimes working smarter is the key. And baseball is another good example. You've got 14, 15 games every day. You have to have a process. So Teddy and I have talked about this as well. Kind of make a short list. I have a feeling you probably do the same thing. But what's some advice to the new handicappers out there on maybe how to handle a sport like college hoops or Major League Baseball, which is a daily grind?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you need to write down every game you bet. You need to put it in some sort of a stat sheet. I use Excel. In fact, Carmine is in town signing up for the the circuit contest. So I got to sit with him a little bit yesterday. And we talked about that. About breaking things down that way. I went back and I looked at how I've done. I've been very good in Major League Baseball underdogs over the years, but when I get up to like a 170 dog, I struggle. So I said, okay, well, this year I'm going to give out less big dogs, and it's working really well. I'm number 2 since May 1st in Major League Baseball profit, having a really nice run. It's something that if I didn't chart my own plays, I wouldn't know anything about. You mentioned college basketball. I've always felt that way. There were so many games on a college Saturday. If you were just go down, you love everything. It's just, I always called it a smorgasbord where there's more food out there that you love. You just can't get to it all. And Saturdays were always the day that I struggled in college basketball. You've just got to be able to break it down. The days where, we joke about on Fridays used to be just the Ivy League in college basketball. And for some reason, we did better on the smaller cards than we did better on the bigger cards. And you've got to be able to know that. So have to go in and break them down as to certain teams. Like, Teddy's very good at this. Teddy, many times, I don't want to give out any of his secrets, but if he's on a team and he has success, he'll be on them again the next day. Now, I'm more of a guy who's looking for value. And I don't play teams that are real hot because you're losing betting value in a game, in a situation where if these two teams met up at one point, maybe they're a 2-point favorite. Now they're a 4-point favorite. So I don't have that betting value. So I don't play that. But there's a lot of guys out there that will do that. And if you can see in college basketball, maybe 10 teams that you follow very well and you know them very well, that's the way to take a look at it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I was going to say, one thing I've gotten better about doing in college hoops is isolating particular conferences. And, when you and I once again started back in the 80s and 90s, you couldn't bet on the MAC. And I always use you as an example, Bryan. It was like late 90s, maybe 1999, that the MAC came live on the college football betting rotation. And what younger viewers can't comprehend is, first of all, we only had the major conferences back then. They were only over-unders on a couple TV games. This is college football, not even college basketball. And when the MAC was on, it was an added board, and we were picking it apart. But now I've actually shied away from the smaller conferences. I know you still look at them some, but I've had a lot of success with top 25 college football, college basketball, and there's more public action, there's more volume. So that's kind of my go-to now, and I've really cut a lot of the small conferences off the board, and it's made my workload easier. Nothing wrong in baseball. You could back in the day focus on American League or National League. I'd say probably don't do that now because every team plays everybody now the last couple of years with the new scheduling dynamics. But you need to have some kind of automation too, some kind of statistical background where you can screen games. And obviously baseball is a very pitcher-heavy sport, a very statistical sport. And I think that helps as well. But, yeah, have a process. And like you said, review your results because a lot of it is random variance. Good luck and bad luck is going to even out in the long run. Are you winning the games where you should be winning, right? If something's different, if something's off with a team or a pitcher, you got to be able to see that. And I think people that take this serious as a full-time professional, they do that. Recreational bettors don't. Hey, and once again, 20 years ago, I would have shamed those people, Bryan. I don't shame them anymore. There's nothing wrong with being a recreational bettor. Just be honest, right? Are you playing to win? Is this an investment or is it entertainment? And there is nothing wrong with it being entertainment. I mean, you go spend $20 at a movie, you're leaving with nothing. You go put $20 on a bet, you're either leaving with nothing or $40. So that's a pretty cool outcome for something you might be enjoying.
Yeah, I agree, and it's something we all have to learn. And it's like I said, just chart your plays and go back and look at them at the end of the year. And Carmine did the same thing. He talked about what he did well on and what he didn't do well on, and that's information. And anytime you get more information, you should be a better handicapper. And I do like what you talked about with the popular conferences and all. So your guy that's going in to watch. Going into a sports book, he wants to watch a game. He's going to be betting on the bigger games. He doesn't care about Louisiana Lafayette or whatever. So to him, that's where you find some advantages if you get a lot of people that are looking, especially if you're looking to play streaks like I talked about a little bit earlier. That's what you want to do. And you mentioned the MAC. The reason why we had so much success in the MAC back in the day was it was limited, which means that they were only taking $500 a game. And your Billy Walters, your syndicates, they're not looking to play $500 a game. They want to play $500,000 a game. So they weren't touching those games for us, and it made our winning for us something that I wish we'd still had. It was very easy at that point.
That's a great analogy. And of course, I use a lot of the financial market analogies. And one thing people don't realize is the little guys have edges. And in the financial world, it's the same way because a lot of these hedge funds, they can't buy stocks or commodities that don't have huge volume and liquidity. It's like orange juice futures or lumber futures. They can't play in those markets and they trend, and you can actually do very well as a smaller investor. Same thing with sports betting. Andy today on Wager Talk today talked about Professional Fighters League. We had Arthur DeCesar on. The limits on that are like $500 to $1,000. So once again, even Brian Leonard and his cat cannot get enough down on that to make it full time, and the syndicates definitely don't. Speaking of baseball live betting, we have a question there. City by the Bay. Once again, he says, you're his favorite, Brian Leonard, so I'll let you answer this. Do you ever mess with live betting with MLB? Yes. If you do, any tips? If not, we'll move on.
I do. I basically what I want to do is take a look at what the lineup coming up is and who are the pitchers that are available. A lot of times, Major League Baseball's got that deal where you got to finish off an inning or you have to pitch 3 batters. And if you've got a guy there that they bring in as a lefty, and all of a sudden, they're starting to pitch hit right-handers against him, well, that kills the entire thing that he can do, and he's still stuck there. So that's something you could take advantage on. And, yeah, live betting is the way to go. I talked about that many times. In fact, talked about the White Sox game earlier. I don't want any part of this White Sox bullpen. It's been very bad. So if you are going to play that under in that White Sox game, I would prefer the first 5 innings, because we've seen so many times where the starting pitcher does very well in Chicago. In fact, if you're a Crochet fan, you've seen that all season long, and the bullpen blows the wind for him. So, you just got to be able to know what the lineup looks like, who's available on the bench. And if you've seen enough baseball games, you know where players come in. A lot of the teams like Tampa Bay, San Francisco, they might not start a certain player, but he'll get more at-bats than the guy who'd actually started based on the pitchers that are in the game. So, a lot of things you can learn, but like everything else, you got to pay attention.
Yeah, I think it's another example of how the little guy could beat the big guy. And in this case, the big guy is the AI, artificial intelligence algorithms that the sports books are using to set in-game lines, right? And you can find little intricacies where a particular player, or pitcher, or matchup is coming up. That's not being factored in. They're looking at how much time is remaining in a game, what the score is. That's pretty much the initial algorithm, and you can take advantage by knowing how it works. Have Cash, by the way, is on the live chat here on YouTube. He says, yeah, I'd never looked at sports betting as for fun. But then again, when cash is in your name, you probably take it pretty serious. But we always appreciate seeing Have Cash. Titan CT, by the way, the word is out here. Wager Talk TV in the live chat is let the cat out of the bag. No pun intended, Brian. Didn't mean to scare your pet there. But the Wager Talk family now knows that Dan is on wedding assignment this week. And Dan, the man Alexander, That's why he will not be back. Hopefully he'll be back on Monday. Might be a bit hungover, but Fortunat says, homie, don't play that, the wedding assignment with the fiance cross country. So we're getting some great life advice here on Friday, WagerTalk TV, whether it's time management, betting management, or life advice about weddings across the country with your fiance. Let's get back to some baseball talk. And in honor of Dan the Man Alexander, who is not here, we have to talk contractually about the Phillies game. And they are playing the D-backs, 6:40 Eastern in Philadelphia. Arizona, World Series representative from the National League last year, just like the Texas Rangers. They've been struggling a bit. The Phillies have not been struggling. A little bit of a lull after coming back from England. Your take on Arizona and Philly, and also your big picture takeaway, Bryan, on both these teams going forward.
We'll get to the big picture first. I like Philadelphia. I think they're a deep team. They could be the best team in Major League Baseball. They've really impressed me. The bullpen has had some problems, but they do have guys out there. They're not stuck with one guy. So they got 4 guys that could close. That's the kind of thing you want to do. You want to have guys that match up, and that's what they do in the playoffs all the time. So I like the Phillies. Arizona, I don't think is going to get there. They do play in a division where everybody stinks except for the Dodgers, who are actually underperforming this year. But I don't think Arizona's going to get there this year, but I did like them last year. But in this matchup, Montgomery goes against Walker. Montgomery really had not pitched well. Obviously, we remember when he signed very late. But he's starting to come along. His last couple starts have been better. Walker's another guy that really I don't like to bet on, obviously, because I don't think he's very good. But the Phillies see something in him that I don't, and they haven't lost a step with him on the mound. So they've been keeping him out there. Slight lean here with the Phillies. I think they're the better team. I think the Arizona gets the pitching advantage here from a starting advantage. But I couldn't find anything on this game to play it either way. But, yeah, if you're a Phillies fan, you've got a really good team here.
Yeah, they're for real. And, I mean, like most of the teams that are for real this year, they've had a pretty good bullpen for the most part. Their whip especially has been good. It's really not a complicated thing. You have a good bullpen nowadays in baseball, like your Cleveland Guardians, as you know. You can do pretty well. And Arizona struggled early this season. The Astros struggled big time with their bullpen early in the season. They've started to turn it around a bit. The Rays aren't what they've been in the past. You know, the Astros and Rays had dominated with bullpens for quite a while, and they both have struggled a bit this year. And that's what's tricky about handicapping baseball. These starters don't go more than 6 innings most of the time. You're not getting a 7 or 8 inning handicap by knowing who's on the mound at the beginning of the game. All right, James Murphy joining us in the live chat here on WagerTalk TV on YouTube, and he's asking about this Pirates game. And we joked earlier that the Pirates, Marco's Pirates, along with my Nationals, are close to that wild card. They're hanging in there. He likes a pitcher prop, though, to go it against. He thinks the Pirates are going to strike out tonight. He's playing Tampa Bay's over 5.5 for their starter. And Tampa's always a team that sometimes goes bullpen. I mean, what are your thoughts on this game tonight, 6:40 Eastern, Tampa at Pittsburgh?
Well, Pittsburgh's going with, looks like it's probably going to be a bullpen game here. Pepio's going for Tampa, and you need a lot out of Pepio in this game. I've watched the last 3 days in Tampa, and that bullpen is just tired as hell. They had to bring the closer in for an extra inning yesterday, and even the announcers from Tampa Bay talked about they don't remember them doing that in the past because they're just so burnt out in the bullpen. That's a concern there, which is why I like the Pittsburgh team total over against Pepio in this bullpen. Pepio's been very good, no doubt about it. But I think this Pittsburgh team has got enough offense to get to them, especially, as I was talking about earlier about live betting. We get to that Tampa Bay bullpen here, I want to bet against them in this contest. So that's something we may be able to take advantage of. A lot of it depends on what the score is in the game and what kind of lines you're going to get out of that. But that's the way I looked at this game is I think Pittsburgh's going to score some runs against Tampa Bay and use that as a free play today. But I like it even better in the end game as you get to the bullpen for Tampa Bay.
Yeah, and James Murphy, I think you might be onto something. You mentioned the over 5.5 strikeouts for Pepio, but you think he'll go 6 innings or more, and that really is the key to that type of a handicap, any kind of over prop. Also, you could look at recorded outs if you think that might be the case. If you can get them, I haven't checked it, but it's probably around that 17 range, which would be right under 6 innings is how the recorded outs work. And I like where you're going with it. If the bullpen is taxed, they're going to have to squeeze an extra inning or so out of the starter. So I think some of those over props with Pepio tonight might be worth a look against the Pittsburgh Pirates. All right, viewers, a couple more minutes left in the show. We're going to get to a best bet from Bryan Leonard in just a moment, including his Cleveland Guardians as they take on the Toronto Blue Jays. So if you have any other games you want to look at, last call here. And speaking of last call, 11 a.m. Eastern live Saturday morning. Kelly Stewart, Kelly in Vegas will be hosting last call here on the channel. And we'll be breaking down mostly baseball, but a couple other topics as well. In fact, Kelly was happy to see Nick Borman will be on talking some soccer. And she's happy it's not just baseball. So, Bryan, we're in the dog days of summer when somebody is happy that someone is coming on Wager Talk TV to talk soccer as opposed to one of the American sports. So it's that time of year where the sports, basketball is pretty much done. Hockey could be done after tonight. Football around the corner. But we still got content this weekend. Andrew McGinnis is going to do some NHL if there's a Game 7. Otherwise, he'll look at CFL tomorrow. Nick Borman's doing PGA and soccer. And then Adam Trigger is doing baseball. So we got you covered 11 a.m. Eastern live on Wager Talk TV on Last Call. And we also, that is interactive as well. Views, questions, and the comments are welcome and used on the air. And then, of course, you can always watch us on the replay here. And over 160,000 subscribers now to Wager Talk TV here on YouTube. Just a couple years ago, we cracked 50. We thought that was a big deal. Now we're at 160,000 and growing. And make sure you click that bell as well when you subscribe because you get an instant alert when these shows go live. By the way, this show is moving to 11 a.m. Eastern, most likely next week. So that's another reason to click the bell when you subscribe so you get an instant alert when we move to 11 a.m. Eastern so you can do this live chat with us. And also when Last Call goes live tomorrow on Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern. And, of course, Wager Talk today, noon Eastern, Monday through Friday here on the channel. But don't forget about the replays. You can watch the replays 24/7. And you can also comment below. We read the comments and we reply back. You guys are going to change me into a good sports bettor, says Lonnie Wagner. Hey, look, that is the goal, right? I mean, the goal here is to win and to make everybody a smarter sports bettor. And that's why we really do appreciate the comments and the questions. And don't be afraid to ask a question. I mean, Bryan and I combined have over 70 years of experience in this industry. I mean, that's pretty impressive. Throw Teddy in there, we're over a century, man. We got a lot of people who have been doing this way back in the 90s, pre-internet. So we've seen both sides of things, and there's a new boom here in the country, which is cool to see, but a lot of new sports bettors as well. All right, Bryan, let's get to your free play. We've talked enough. Let's get to your Cleveland Guardians against Carmine's Toronto Blue Jays. What are you doing with this free play tonight on Friday?
I am playing this game over. The Toronto offense here against Carrasco. As much as I love Cookie, and everybody in Cleveland loves Cookie because of his health situations, cancer situations over the years, he's just not having a good season. And I believe Ralph Michael sent something out where he broke down and if it wasn't Ralph, I apologize, but it was about Cleveland's the runs they give up when Carrasco starts against the runs they give up when he doesn't start. And even if he's running good, he seems to tire early. Age, heat could have factors. It's going to be a little bit hot in Cleveland again today. I believe it's going to be in the 80s, something like that, when game time at night. So you don't see that in Cleveland very often where it's 80 at night. But Carrasco has not been very consistent. Well, he has been consistent. He hasn't been very good. But he hasn't been consistent throughout the game. So this is another situation where if you like to play live betting, you can see it coming on for Carrasco. He'll walk a guy or two, he'll hit a guy, and all of a sudden it falls apart. And like all the other teams in Major League Baseball, you get in the summer here and where they're going right now, the bullpens are a little bit taxed. So they're going to keep those guys in the lineup a little bit longer, and that's an advantage to us in this game here from both sides. Is Rodriguez is back from the minor leagues, and he went down. He came over. They signed him in, I don't remember what country, but they brought him in, and he's an older signing, very much like Imanaga for the Cubs, but he struggled a lot in that first game. And Cleveland's a very good team, hitting wise. They are able to get guys on base, hitting for a little bit more power than what anybody expected this year. I think this game flies over the total. It opened 9 to the under. It stayed basically that way all game long or all day long. So we got two pitchers I want to bet against. We've got a stadium in Cleveland that's more of a hitter's ballpark this year than before. I talked about the way that the wind's set up, more home runs in this stadium than in the past. Two guys that I don't think are going to have a lot of success, but they're going to have to pitch a little bit longer because the bullpens have been hurting. Toronto was out there without their top two bullpen guys again today. So it's a situation for me that the only way I can look at this game is the over. And even if Carrasco gets off to a pretty good start in this game, we might get better numbers as it goes on for him because he's going to be pitching a little bit longer. And as we know, Rodriguez may be on a pitch count here, but they'll have to have him in a little bit longer because the middle guys for Toronto's bullpen haven't been that great. So maybe we can get some extra runs in this one and to play this one over. And like I said yesterday, they score 10.7 runs per game. You take a look at the schedule today. Only Colorado at 11 is the only one we got to worry about for double digits. So I think we see more runs here. And not a lot of rain. I think the Yankee game may get a little rain. But other than that, pretty good weather in just about every city.
Yeah, always got to keep an eye on that weather with baseball. We see obviously the wind was blown out of Wrigley the other day, and that total was several runs higher because of it. So it is a factor in baseball. And the rain delays are something you probably agree with me. I kind of shy away from those games unless I really have a strong opinion. That's kind of a randomness factor I don't want to take on. And that's another quick scratch on that short list we talk about making each day when you're having the baseball card handicapped. Yes, Steve M's picks are on fire. And Bobby E., I did bury the lead. I completely forgot to mention a couple of things. First of all, the rest of June is free when you sign up for July for Bryan, Leonard, myself, Steve Merril, everybody else. And Brian, I mentioned this promo Monday, 4 days ago. I've gone 7-0 since I mentioned that promo. I've now won 11 straight plays. I'm 17-3 my last 20 all sports. Few NBA mixed in, but that's mostly baseball. Hey, look, yes, you all missed 7-0 for the last 4 days. You could have gotten that for free, but there's still 10 days to go in June. Why not get the rest free when you buy July? It's quite simple. It's all sports. You can get on board my 17-3 run. I've got 2 strong baseball best bets tonight on Friday. I've also posted a free late night play in baseball on my page. We swept the board yesterday on the free play and the best bets. I'm looking to do it again tonight, looking to get to 13 straight winners tonight. Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com. And Brian, you've got a strong play going in the NHL. It's summertime, but the Canadians didn't get the memo, and the NHL playoffs continue tonight. Tell us about that strong play, because once again, this buy July, get June free. The next 10 days free is all sports. You're getting your baseball and your hockey best bet, a strong 5% play tonight.
I appreciate that. And once again, I thought about it after I finished my last, my best bet. I forgot to promote myself again. Well, there's a good reason to promote myself today because, as you mentioned, I've got the 5% playing in hockey. I've been very good in the NHL. Number one the last 7 years in overall net profit in hockey. And our 5% have been excellent all the last 7 seasons in that regard. So this is something I've been looking forward to. And a big 5% tonight in the NHL. We'll see if it's the last game of the season or if they go to a game 7. But yeah, I've got that as well as one baseball play up. And as I mentioned, number one, since May 1st in net profit. In fact, I believe somebody passed me yesterday, maybe number 2 in Major League Baseball net profit since May 1st. And I will likely be adding other plays onto the card today as teams run in and the lines run into our strike area. I don't put out a play unless I've got a certain number I'm looking to play these games at. And if that number becomes available for everybody to bet, I am in on them, and you should be too.
Yeah, once again, when you're a direct subscriber to Bryan, Leonard, myself, Steve Merril, anybody else, the minute we release a play, you get an instant notification by email and text message as well, and you can log into the site anytime to check the plays. But you get it the minute we release it. Everybody gets it at the same time. We have one set of plays. If we're using a game, our clients get it. And this is all access, all inclusive, every sport release for July. And if you sign up now, you get the next 10 days of June for free. That includes my 11 straight baseball winners trying to make it 13 straight tonight with 2 more best bets, or Brian's strong NHL Game 6 finals 5% best bet along with baseball as well. Hey, why not get both of us? It's huge savings. You get June for free when you sign up for July. Steve Merril and Bryan Leonard, WagerTalk.com. And don't forget, free plays galore on WagerTalk each and every day to help you build your bankroll as well. Thanks for watching. Dan Alexander will be back on Monday to host, and we will do this show again next week. And once again, we are switching to 11 a.m. Eastern sooner than later. So make sure you click subscribe. You click the bell for instant alerts when this show goes live every day. And also the free play videos. I'm going to do a free play video right after this show here for the Dodgers-Angels late night game. So if you click that bell, you get an instant alert. Thumbs up, like, helps out keep this content free and plentiful. And also comment below in the replays as we do read those comments and reply back. Bryan Leonard, best of luck this weekend. Best of luck in your big NHL 5%er tonight. I am Steve Merril, and we'll be back on Monday with more content. Stay tuned in the meantime for more free previews, baseball videos at galore here on Wager Talk TV.